Hey guys, welcome into the first episode of the Met Broncos Pod. I'm joined here by Brady Piper and Isaac Bugarin. We are all hosts on different shows here at Met Media, and the Broncos Met. Why am I fucking this up?
The Met Broncos Podcast.
The Met Broncos Podcast will be a weekly podcast where we break down everything Broncos. We will also be doing some mini pods on the Rockies and Nuggets as well, so stay tuned for that. First thing we got on the docket, guys, Emmanuel Sanders' injury. How are we feeling about that? I don't know. I saw the video of him running routes. I don't really know what's up with it.
You know, coming off injury, I think it's really tough to, get back. But I feel like he's one of those guys that's continually motivated. Obviously he has a passion to play. I feel like his injury, although it was severe, and at the end of the season he's going to come back stronger than ever. And I think Joe Flacco's going to benefit greatly with Sanders on the field.
I don't want to be negative Nancy here, but the Achilles is probably one of the worst injuries I feel like any athlete can have. And I feel like coming off an Achilles injury, you're not the same player. So if he can find a way to be the same player that he was before, then I'm not too concerned about the injury. But if he can find a way to be the same player, then I feel like we should all be pretty happy with him. Yeah,
well, and he's, obviously posted so many videos of him running routes, and it looks wonderful.
Yeah, he looks really
good. Here's what he had to say on 104.3 The Fan the other day.
I'm here to tell you guys, I have no pain when I'm running.
Yeah,
no pain at all.
It doesn't look at how's the next day.
Nah, I feel good. I take really good care of my body. The only time that my Achilles is sore is when I wake up in the morning. And when I wake up in the morning, I get up. Once I start moving around, it loosens up, and then I'm ready to go. I've been doing two-a-days. I haven't even been posting me running routes with the Broncos. I've been running routes with the Broncos, and then I'll go and run routes on my own as well. So I've been doing two-a-days on this thing.
Yeah, well, and, he seems confident, right? And his whole goal in his career is he wants to break 10,000 yards. He wants to be consistent and be great. So, the thing is, I think it will benefit him that we have so much more talent in the receiving room now. So it's not all dependent on Emmanuel Sanders.
Well, that's what I was just about to say, is that he's probably going to get double-teamed a lot more this year, given the fact that Cortland Sutton is probably not going to get double-teamed.
Yeah.
He doesn't have Demaryius Thomas on the opposite side, who gets a lot of the defensive attention.
You ended up seeing a lot of Cortland Sutton, especially at the end of the season. Teams are starting to respect him more.
Yeah.
So you might see double teams on Cortland Sutton one play and then Emmanuel Sanders on another. But either of those players can break out and get big plays downfield, especially Sanders. I think one of the big pieces that'll help out is Deshaun Hamilton in the slot.
Yeah.
I feel the importance of having a good slot receiver, although he's young and although he's still a little bit raw. I feel Deshaun Hamilton, he's going to get out there, he's going to open up some space on the inside and be able to get those deep shots downfield to Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think, too, Cortland Sutton, part of his game is being a deep threat, right?
Yeah.
And now that we have more of an established offensive line, I think, adding Noah Fant, having Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman, having an established run game, right, if that pans out, if Phillip Lindsay can repeat what he did last year, I think, it's going to take a lot of pressure off Emmanuel Sanders.
But I also think that Emmanuel Sanders' numbers will probably go down this year, especially in the red zone, because Joe Flacco loves his tight ends.
Yeah, well, and we just added another one. So.
Yeah, so I feel like, especially in the red zone, and I think you'll see a lot of Emmanuel Sanders yards probably on go routes and those deep passes from Joe Flacco. And he's got a good arm.
Yeah.
Which is something that previous Denver Broncos quarterbacks haven't had. So
we shall see. Speaking of Noah Fant, let's talk about this rookie class. Obviously, the Broncos having the 10th pick, trading it for Noah Fant. Great pick in my opinion, but there's obviously way more, to it than that. Who's your guys' favorite pick in this draft?
I think Noah Fant was really a steal where they got him. I feel like he's arguably the, that 1-2 combo with those Iowa tight ends with Hawkinson and then Noah Fant. I feel like Fant is the worse of the two, but I feel like he's the better receiver of the two. In college, he never really proved his value as a blocker, like a downfield blocker. We talked about this earlier. I think he's very, very much so a Jared Cook. I feel like he's very, very much a Jimmy Graham, not there to really run a guy into the dirt and then, block for a 10-yard touchdown. I feel he's more valued as that receiver downfield, and I think that really, really helps out this offense, especially being as athletic and strong as he is. It's going to be a huge impact for the Broncos.
I really like Dalton Risner out of Kansas State. He's a Colorado native. And I believe he played 7-man football.
Yeah, he played in Wiggins. Yeah, 7-man football. Dalton Risner. Yeah.
So Dalton Risner, he went up to John Elway at was it the All Colorado?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I know.
Saw John Elway and told him, hey, I'm Dalton Risner. I'm representing Colorado. I'm trying to do my best to play out here. And I think John Elway, he made that first interaction with John Elway, and I feel like that really put him on the map. And then going to Kansas State, and put up really good numbers at Kansas State.
Yeah, well,
it's not a competitive conference, but I feel like an offensive line is definitely a different position as far as it's not about what conference you play at, because at the Division I collegiate level, every man on the defensive line is probably going to be really competitive, really tough. So I feel like any guy who can block as good as Dalton Risner did at Kansas State should be a second-round draft pick, and that's what
exactly. Well, and when you look at the AP All-American team, right?
Yeah.
It's Alabama, Auburn.
Yep.
To be an All-American from Kansas State is extremely impressive. And, obviously bringing in Mike Munchak, I think will benefit him a lot. Yeah. Moving him into guard next to Garrett Bowles will benefit him a lot. And OTAs are over, and we've heard coming out of OTAs that Dalton Risner is a grinder. He is excited to play. He tries every play. He goes 100% all the time. So it's exciting to finally have a guy at any offensive line position who there is this much hype around. We'll see if it's if it translates to games. But I'm gonna mix it up here with my favorite pick. Unpopular opinion: my favorite pick of this entire draft was Drew Lock, and I'll tell you why. Is because he was supposed to, and people give John Elway so much flack because they traded up to get him in the second round. But if you look at so many quarterbacks that were drafted in the second round, late first round, second round guys, a name that rings a bell to me is a guy like Derek Carr, right, who was drafted in the second round. He almost won MVP one year because, he broke his leg and stuff. But Drew Lock, to me, I think they'll groom him. And I know Joe Flacco said the whole thing about, it's not my job to groom him. But that's the same thing that Peyton Manning said with Brock Osweiler.
Yep.
Not that it worked out well.
I hope he ends up. But if you look at the tools, I don't know if you guys ever watched him play in college, but the dude's got an arm.
He's got
a vision,
Mizzou,
and he's accurate. He's mobile. So I'm really excited. I'm on the Drew Lock train here. Joe Flacco obviously isn't the answer long term, but I think Drew Lock's going to be in Denver for a while, and I think by the end of his career, we'll be saying good things about him.
And, my favorite thing is that he did play in Missouri. He played at Mizzou. You get a little bit of bipolar weather there. Some of the big concerns with, the Browns, drafting Baker Mayfield a year ago was that Baker Mayfield came from a school that was, not as cold. It was a little bit, he wasn't that, 6'4" quarterback. He wasn't that guy that would really succeed in a climate like Cleveland. Yeah. I feel like Drew Lock has the size. I feel like he has the ability to adjust. I feel like with a cannon of an arm, groom him, whether it be, John Elway looking into it personally or Joe Flacco kind of being there for him. I feel like it's very, very valuable to have a quarterback that can be versatile, that can, play in all different types of climates and be this, big cannon of an arm that you need with Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, well, and I think, too, an important piece of that, when we talked about Dalton Risner, Mike Munchak being important to him, I think the new arrival of T.C. McCartney will be another role. It's his first, coaching position to that degree. So if it does work out, we could have a beautiful marriage on our hands.
Well, I see this Drew Lock and Joe Flacco situation playing out as much like the Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre situation.
Yeah.
Right?
I'd say Brett Favre's a little better, but I mean, it's very similar.
I would much rather have a Hall of Famer as my quarterback before.
Yeah, exactly.
But I also think this gives Drew Lock 2 years minimum to sit behind Joe Flacco, learn the NFL, learn the pace of the game, and also gives him a chance to work on his accuracy. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Drew Lock's accuracy at Mizzou, I believe he had a few more interceptions than what teams would have liked at Mizzou, but I really think this gives him at least 2 years to really learn the game of football all over again at the NFL level and really work on his accuracy.
I see the value in not necessarily the Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers scenario, but I see it with the Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, cannon of an arm, MVP candidate. This year, going into this year, he won last year. He got that year to really groom himself, get into that role where you're ready to be a starter. He got a game or two
the year before.
Yeah, he played against the Broncos.
Yeah, I think that was the one game he started was against the Broncos.
Yeah,
and
it's like week 17.
Yeah, in his rookie season. Yeah,
I see very, very good comparisons to the Joe Flacco and Drew Lock to the Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes, just because of that talent, just because Drew Lock has the mobility to do it. I feel like it's good comparison if you want to look at that.
Well, and if you look too, right, like so Drew Lock, his junior season threw 44 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. His senior season, 28 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. The difference between obviously the NFL, you have to make that jump, but at Missouri, how good are your position players? You know what I mean? And the Broncos are doing a good job of laying the foundation of, okay, we have Phillip Lindsay, we have Cortland Sutton, we have Deshaun Hamilton, Royce Freeman, so and even Noah Fant and Jake Butt, Jeff Hireman, we'll see how they do. But just creating that foundation of like, we're going to surround you with the best possible situation, and then go out there and prove yourself. So I think he'll be, in a couple of years, he'll be in a good spot where he has all the weapons necessary, and I'm confident that he'll produce. So we'll see. Speaking of Drew Lock, who's not our starter, let's talk about our starter, Joe Flacco. How do you guys think he's going to do this year?
I was never a believer in Joe Flacco being elite. The meme is Joe Flacco elite. He's not elite. He never really has been elite in his career. I know you and I disagree about this, that he's had good seasons. But,
he has.
Yeah.
He's had the ability, of course, Super Bowl MVP, but never run an actual MVP. I feel like he can fit very well as that role player, field general. He's not going to be that guy making the biggest plays out there. He's not going to be your Aaron Rodgers. He's not going to be your Patrick Mahomes. He's going to be that guy for you that can throw up 3,500 yards, but I don't feel like he's going to be that 4,200 yard passer.
Yeah. Well, and just 2016, 3 years ago, he had 4,300 yards, but that's not what Joe Flacco needs to do. The best possible scenario for the Broncos is to have Joe Flacco be the best game manager he can be.
Exactly.
Score 21 points a game, let the defense rest. Letting the defense rest throughout the season, which killed us last year, that's more important than him being a Pro Bowler. I think in order for this team to succeed, Joe Flacco needs to do what he does best.
But I also think he needs to limit his interceptions. As far as he's had 1 year where he's had fewer than 10 interceptions, and that was last year, and that's because he didn't play every game. Had he played every game, I feel like that number is definitely in double digits. But I feel like he just like you said, he's got to be a game manager, and he's got to be able to keep the Broncos defense on the sidelines.
He has to limit his ego and really not try to do too much.
Yeah.
I feel like if he goes out there and he wants to be the field manager and he wants to be that leader, he can do it. He just can't be that, superstar. He's not in his 20s anymore.
Exactly.
You have to be...
He's 35? He'll be 35 by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, too, a major factor to Joe Flacco's success, can Phillip Lindsay repeat what he did last year?
Is Phillip Lindsay even going to be the starter? Is that even...
Yeah, well, I mean, he's supposed to be back by training camp, that wrist injury. So, I mean, we'll see. There's been a lot of running. The running back room in Denver has always been one that has been a slight merry-go-round. So, if Phillip Lindsay is an All-Pro running back next year, I see Joe Flacco having a good season as well.
I feel like if you have that well-balanced offense, I think it'll contribute to the success of Joe Flacco.
And this isn't going to be the aired-out offense to where every single play is all the way downfield to Emmanuel Sanders and Noah Fant. It's going to be that Tom Brady-type offense where it's filled with short passes, slants, and out routes.
Smart decisions.
Run the ball down their
throat.
throat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, fellas, it was a good pod. It was a good first pod. Join us next week. Right, it probably might not be the same host, so we keep it interesting here. But yeah, join us. Tune in next week, guys.
Our favorite part of this show is, as though we're starting it now, making sure that you guys check out our own individual content. We all make our own content. We all have our own podcasts, shows, and write our own stuff. So please check us out on mymetmedia.com. Check him out at
Coffin Corner Podcast.
Check him out at
Game 7 Podcast.
And check me out at Piper Sports Podcast on YouTube. Regardless, thank you guys very, very much, and we can't wait to get back to you next week.